The human body is a masterpiece of biological engineering, yet for those of us navigating the vibrant decades beyond 50, a silent and subtle erosion often begins to undermine our foundational independence. Imagine for a moment a routine scene that plays out in millions of homes every single morning. You reach for a pair of shoes, or perhaps you pivot slightly to catch a ringing telephone, and suddenly, the floor beneath you feels less like solid ground and more like shifting sand. This momentary lapse in stability, that sudden intake of breath as your center of gravity betrays you, is not merely an inconvenience of age, but a critical signal from your nervous system. We often dismiss these stumbles as clumsiness or an inevitable byproduct of the passing years. But today, we are going to challenge paradigm with clinical precision. Most people believe that failing balance is strictly a matter of weakening muscles in the legs, leading them to pursue arduous gym routines that often fail to address the root cause. However, the true architect of your stability resides within a sophisticated command center located far above your ankles. In the next few minutes, I am going to reveal a specialized intervention, a quick neurophysiological adjustment that takes less than 120 seconds to perform and requires no specialized equipment. This is not about complex gymnastics. It is about restoring the vital communication lines between your brain and your extremities. We are moving beyond the surface-level advice of being careful and diving into a transformative technique that restores the reflexive confidence you thought was gone forever. By the end of this presentation, you will understand exactly how to recalibrate your internal gyroscope, ensuring that every step you take is anchored in absolute certainty and strength. To understand why the ground feels increasingly treacherous as we age, we must look past the skin and bone into the intricate world of proprioception and neurological signaling. In the medical community, we recognize that stability is a tripartite system involving the inner ear's vestibular apparatus, our visual input, and the somatosensory system. As we cross the threshold of 50, a phenomenon known as sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass, begins to take hold. But more critically, our proprioceptive acuity begins to dull. Proprioception is your body's sixth sense. It is the ability of your brain to know exactly where your limbs are in space without you having to look at them. Over time, the specialized receptors in your joints and tendons, known as mechanoreceptors, become less sensitive. This creates a dangerous signal lag between your feet and your brain. When your foot hits a slightly uneven surface, a youthful brain registers and corrects the tilt in milliseconds. In a senior, that signal may be delayed by a fraction of a second, just long enough for a wobble to become a fall. Furthermore, we must address the fear of falling cycle, a psychological state with physical consequences. When a person experiences a near miss, the brain instinctively responds by stiffening the body. This muscular rigidity is counterproductive. It raises your center of mass and makes you more like a top-heavy pillar than a flexible, adaptive organism. By relying too heavily on your vision to see where the floor is, you effectively neglect the sensors in your feet, causing them to atrophy from a lack of neurological demand. This creates a state of sensory mismatch where the brain is receiving conflicting data, leading to the dizziness and hesitation that many seniors mistake for permanent frailty. Before we can implement the restoration trick, we must identify the environmental factors that are actively sabotaging your equilibrium every single day. The primary culprit in modern society is the sedentary nature of our lives, specifically the physiological impact of the chair. Prolonged sitting causes the hip flexors to shorten and tighten, while simultaneously inducing gluteal amnesia, a condition where the largest muscles in your body, the glutes, literally forget how to fire effectively. Since your glutes are the primary stabilizers of your pelvis, their inactivity leaves your entire upper body swaying on an unstable foundation. This is compounded by an often overlooked factor: your choice of footwear. For decades, the footwear industry has marketed maximum cushioning as the gold standard for comfort. However, for a senior seeking balance, a thick, pillowy sole acts like a layer of acoustic foam, muffling the vital feedback coming from the ground. Your feet are designed to feel the earth. They contain thousands of nerve endings meant to map the texture and angle of the surface beneath you. When you wrap them in excessive padding, you are effectively blinding your feet, forcing your brain to guess what is happening at the ground level. This lack of sensory input leads to a gradual decline in the reflexes of the ankle complex, which is your first line of defense against a trip. We have traded neurological health for perceived comfort, and the result is a systemic weakening of the very mechanisms that keep us upright. Recognizing that your environment is working against you is the first step toward reclaiming the physical authority over your own movements. Having identified the biological and environmental barriers to stability, we now arrive at the precise intervention designed to bypass these obstacles and restore your balance in a matter of moments. This technique, which I refer to as the sensory motor calibration, is divided into 3 distinct phases that prioritize neurological reawakening over mere physical exertion. The first phase is the dorsal awakening. To begin, while standing near a stable surface for safety, you must remove your footwear to allow direct contact with the floor. You will spend 60 seconds performing micro-oscillations, shifting your weight from the balls of your feet to your heels with such subtlety that an observer might not even see you moving. This forces the mechanoreceptors in your soles to send a sudden, concentrated burst of data to the cerebellum. The second phase involves pelvic anchoring. Most seniors carry their weight too far forward or too far back, creating a precarious lean. You must focus on tucking the pelvis slightly and imagining a heavy plumb line dropped from your tailbone directly between your heels. This immediately lowers your center of gravity and engages the deep core stabilizers that have likely been dormant for years. Finally, we implement the tandem reset. Place one foot directly in front of the other, heel to toe, as if walking on a tightrope, and hold this position while focusing your gaze on a fixed point in the distance, not the floor. This specific alignment creates a neurological crisis that forces the brain to rapidly reorganize its balance protocols. As you practice this, it is vital to remember that the goal is not to be perfectly still, but to become highly efficient at making the tiny microscopic corrections that prevent a fall. While we navigate these technical steps to reclaim your autonomy, I invite you to take a brief moment to subscribe to this channel and join our community of proactive individuals dedicated to aging with strength. Furthermore, if you have specific questions regarding your own mobility, or if a certain part of this explanation is unclear, please leave a comment below. I personally monitor these discussions and will have the pleasure of answering your questions to ensure you have the clearest path to success. To appreciate why such a simple set of movements can yield such profound results, we must examine the concept of mechanotransmission. When you engage in the sensory motor calibration, you are not just stretching, you are physically transforming the way your nervous system processes gravity. Every time you challenge your balance in that tandem position, you are triggering neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to forge new neural pathways even in the later stages of life. From a clinical perspective, we are targeting the vestibulo-ocular reflex, the system that stabilizes your vision during head movement. By forcing the brain to reconcile the challenging foot position with a fixed visual target, we are tightening the feedback loop between the inner ear and the skeletal muscles. This is far more effective than traditional weightlifting because it addresses the software of the body rather than just the hardware. We are also utilizing the principle of pre-activation, where the nervous system begins to anticipate instability and fires the stabilizing muscles, such as the multifidus and the tibialis anterior, milliseconds before they are actually needed. This anticipatory response is the difference between a minor stumble and a catastrophic injury. By performing these micro-adjustments, you are essentially upgrading the operating system of your physical frame. Science proves that balance is a perishable skill, but it is also a highly recoverable one. This protocol works because it honors the biological reality that the body is an adaptive organism. When provided with the correct high-intensity sensory input, it has no choice but to respond with increased stability and refined motor control. Understanding the science is a prerequisite for change, but the actual transformation occurs through the rigorous application of a sustainable routine. To translate these clinical insights into lasting physical autonomy, I recommend the implementation of the 222 protocol, a structured framework designed to integrate seamlessly into a senior's daily life without causing fatigue or requiring excessive time. This protocol dictates that you perform the sensory motor calibration for exactly 2 minutes, twice a day, for a minimum of 2 weeks. The consistency of this input is far more critical than the intensity. By practicing for 2 minutes in the morning, perhaps while waiting for your coffee to brew, you prime your nervous system for the day's activities, alerting the brain that it must maintain high-fidelity communication with the lower extremities. The second session should occur in the late afternoon or early evening, a time when cognitive and physical fatigue often begins to set in, which is statistically when the majority of domestic falls occur. During this evening session, you are effectively reinforcing the neural pathways, ensuring that the balance software remains updated even when the body is tired. Safety, however, is the non-negotiable foundation of this protocol. You should always perform these movements on a flat, non-slip surface. And initially, you must keep a sturdy chair or a kitchen counter within reach. As your confidence grows, you can gradually reduce the amount of physical support you use, moving from a full grip to a single finger, and eventually to no support at all. This progressive overload of the balance system is what forces the body to adapt. By the end of the 14-day period, the microscopic corrections that once felt deliberate and difficult will have become subconscious and automatic, providing you with a safety net of reflexes that operate beneath the level of conscious thought. As we bring this technical exploration to a close, it is essential to reflect on what is truly at stake when we discuss balance and stability. This is not merely about avoiding a medical statistic or preventing a fracture. It is about the preservation of your personal sovereignty. Movement is the currency of freedom. The ability to walk through a park, to travel to new cities, or simply to move with confidence through your own home is the greatest asset one can possess in the second half of life. When you commit to the exercises and the scientific principles we have discussed today, you are making a profound investment in your future self. You are choosing a path of resilience over a path of decline. We have debunked the myth that losing one's balance is an inescapable sentence of aging, proving instead that the body remains a dynamic, teachable entity well into its 8th and 9th decades. The autonomy you seek is not found in a pill or a complex medical procedure, but in the deliberate daily recalibration of your own biological systems. Remember that every great journey is composed of individual, steady steps. By mastering the quick trick and understanding the why behind every movement, you have already taken the most difficult step of all, the step toward knowledge. I encourage you to revisit this information whenever you feel a sense of hesitation in your gait, using it as a diagnostic tool to keep your foundation secure. Reclaim your balance, trust in your body's capacity for renewal, and continue to move through the world with the poise and strength you deserve. Your journey toward a more stable and confident life does not end here. It begins with the very next step you take.